Good morning, Shikharji.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to this last session of YIT for the year 2022. And myself, Shikhar Agnihotri, will be the moderator today. And we have a very inspiring, young, dynamic speaker today with us, whom I'll introduce you shortly. And he's going to speak on a very interesting topic, subject, which is very relevant in the present times. But before we do that, let us all come together in heart and mind and invoke that immutable principle in which we live, we move, and have our being. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. Namaskar, everyone, and welcome back. And as I said, today we have a very interesting topic. Also, it's kind of addressing a social problem that we have in not in just one city or country, but all over the world. And the thing is about alcohol, the influence of alcohol. Many social reforms, many policies are being put in place to deal with this challenge, but most of them touch upon the external aspects of it. But today, we are going to hear what Annie Besant had to say about the influence of alcohol. And to present this subject, we have with us today Mathurnath from Chennai, currently working in Mumbai. He has been a member of the Theosophical Society since 2018 and has been a keen reader of the Theosophical literature. And he aspires to spread the literature to those who seek. And it is in this direction he has compiled and gave presentations on the books Etheric Double, Astral Body, Mental Body, Causal Body, and the Solar System, in order to make the reader acclimatize to the actual literature. At the end of the talk, he always recommends to read the book in order to understand the truth deeply and to concretize the theosophical teachings in a tangible way. He aspires to spread the teachings by practicing diligently amongst the youth who are the young minds of the nation. So without any further ado, I request Mathurnath to share with us this very important and relevant subject, the influence of alcohol.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shikhar, for the introduction. Just a small change that now it is no more at the end of the session. I recommend people to read the books. Now it's at the beginning. I always recommend you to read the books. And the one which we are going to talk today is a talk which Annie Besant has given regarding the influence of alcohol in London. And there she has explained about the occult nature and the occult science behind why it is not safe or why it is not good to have some alcohol. So without any further delay, I'll just share my screen.
I'll
Shikhar,
I'll I'll,
yeah.
I'll make you co-host so you can
Yeah.
share yours. Okay.
Um, Is my screen visible?
No, no.
No. Okay. Is it now?
No.
Okay. Is there a way I can share the presentation?
Okay, you can just email it to me. I'll share in case yours is Windows or Mac or something
It's
different.
Mac, Shikharji.
Okay, maybe so. You just send me an email.
Okay.
I'll in the meantime you start and then I'll share the
Sure,
PowerPoint.
sure.
Yeah.
Just give me a moment.
Okay.
Last session I was able to share, so that's why I was like wondering how is
Mathurnath,
it?
first
Yes.
open your session on your laptop screen. First open.
Yes. Yes, that's
Okay.
opened.
Okay. Now go to the share screen option in the Zoom.
Okay.
Now click that
Yes.
option. You will see all opened things on your that Zoom pop up.
Yeah, but I kept my keynote open and
No, you
I
will have to open it again.
yeah, Acha, you want me to close the keynote and open it again?
Yeah, then it will happen.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Mm, I did that now, but is it seen again?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's better you can send it to Shikarji.
Yes. Just a minute. This is something which is unanticipated. Just a minute. Uh,
A regret inconvenience to the audience. Just it will take 1 minute and we'll be back online.
yeah, I've just mailed.
Yeah.
Let me know if it is come. Okay, I'll start with the presentation.
Yeah, you go ahead and I'll start as soon as I receive, I'll share it.
Yeah, sure.
It's in Word document, no, not some
It is in
PPT.
PowerPoint.
Acha,
PPT.
PowerPoint. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So what here we talk about in terms, so coming back to the topic, yes. So what we talk about here in terms of alcohol is about whether we drink and the consumption. Now, here, what we are talking is not only about drinking, but it is more about consumption of alcohol. Now, when I mean by consumption of alcohol, it is even a small portion of diluted spirit. What impact it could give to us in our subtle bodies is what is being discussed here. Now, apart from the stance where the talk is all about, the social stances which everybody has taken, calling it like the poor drinking, and then beating up their wives or kids, or the domestic violence associated, or the crimes connected to it, or be the economics of some certain political situations. She even says in the talk that there are some lines where she explains that certain political decisions and revenue considerations have also been made with regards to the uh, with sales of alcohol, etc., etc. So these all look like some typical situations we undergo in our modern lives as well. And also it's so nice to see that what talk has been given a century back is still continuing, and we need to reform something on that. So, laying some stress on it, the stance which Annie Besant has taken here is very clear. She says that agreed that these are all the social issues and these are all what the governments and several activists talk about in terms of the alcoholic behavior, but what we are trying here is to give the occult explanation for the same thing. Uh, the next slide, please. Shikharji, the next slide. Thank you. So, coming up to what we here talk about in theosophy, that when I say a human being, the human being is not the physical layout which you see. So, the Mathurnath or be Taral or be Shikhar, or any person for that matter, it is not this layout which I say within myself. When I have a physical form, which I do not deny, but beyond the physical form, I have an energy body, which means that the vitalities in my body matters to me. The emotions which runs through my system matters to me. And then the thoughts again, which I create or which I receive matters to me. And above all, me as a complete packaged individual. When I mean by a complete packaged individual, here we also talk about something called a soul. So an ensoulment is what we talk about. This is what we call as causal bodies. So when what we eat, what we listen, what we speak, what we think about actually has an impact in our way of life. That's what even the modern psychology and the hypnotism is all about, and we speak about it, and we tend to modify the behavior patterns so that we can have the lives in our way, right? So in that matter, considering to the physical body is what Annie Besant is mentioning about it here. So she says that the body is considered an instrument of spiritual intelligence, which is regarded as the man himself. Now, as I mentioned, like as a soul, I have a thought, I have a high aspiration. Again, I bring it down to my levels of daily conduct. That is, I see to it that, okay, if I think about love, how do I manifest love? As compassion. Then, how do I do that in form of emotionally? I feel for the other person. And then, how do I act upon it? I act upon it in the form of healing. For example, you could manifest love through many ways, right? Even like creating a support mechanism, even by giving clarity to people, talking to people, anything can happen, right? So one mode of action is healing, say, let's say. So now when this kind of connection is established, what am I trying to say is that what is there as a soul is now being acted upon the physical body. So rather, the physical body is the vehicle of the soul, is what we call in theosophy, and that's the ideology which we carry. So therefore, any work which I do in terms of the spiritual realm, I use my physical body as its vehicle. So that is why the body is considered an instrument of spiritual intelligence, which is regarded as the man himself. Because, as I said, not only my physical body, the other aspects are also considered. That means that when I talk about me as a man, my physical body is also counted in apart from my thoughts, emotions, behavior. Now, its efficacy of work is largely dependent upon the integrity of the instrument. Now, here, integrity, normally when I say that you deal with integrity, what do we call? We almost take it as a part of honesty. But here, what we talk about integrity is about purity. Now, when I mean by purity is that there are certain frequencies with which we vibrate, isn't it? Now, the energies vibrate to a certain degree, the thoughts vibrate at a different frequencies. Now we need to match to this frequency. That means we need to raise or scale up our energies and the physical bodies to that extent. Now if this doesn't happen, and if there's a mismanagement, then on the practical level you have a lot of ideas, but you're not able to work them out, or you're not able to effectuate many ideas. Now if there is a physical drawback, say you have an injury, you have any sort of any habit to weaken the body, then automatically what happens is that this body cannot vibrate it to that high extent, and therefore there is always a mismatch and there is an imbalance. And sometimes psychologically also it causes you an imbalance into the system, and which the modern psychiatry can diagnose you with anxiety or depression or bipolar disorder or whatever. So this is the truth with which we are trying to give you the broader perspective and the science of how the body and the mind are connected. And the entire uh, presentation for today is about how the body and mind are connected, and how the soul and the body body mind are connected. So it is on these paradigms which we are talking about. So the body is place where the atoms and molecules work together for the tasks they are assigned. Now, this is what the modern science also talks about. But a lady in 1800s or early 19s, where we do not even understand what is the molecules or atoms, etc., which was only prevalent to the range of science. For them, this one is a very big topic or a big thing to be wowed upon or awe-inspired upon. So like how we all have the molecules, atoms, and chemical compounds within our bodies, along with it are also organisms staying in our bodies. I think the modern science says that we have billions of microbes actually working along with the trillions of cells in our bodies. So is a place where the body actually has the microbes dwelling in it. Even now, when we talk, there are a lot of bacteria which are floating across. And now, after the pandemic, we all know that even viruses move within inside and outside of bodies. So that means that we have a complete place of all chemical and organic and inorganic chemical compounds with which the bodies work. So is where the microbes dwell. The good ones help in the immunity of the body. They help in its growth. They help in its development. Now, this development is a very nice word. Grow is okay. The physical growth we can talk about. What do you mean about development? The development is again about the mind-body principle we are talking about. Theosophical definition of development is completely different. We are not jumping into that space. What here we talk about development is how am I connecting my mind and body together for the purpose of manifesting what my soul intends to do? Now, what is a soul? We will talk about it later, or please refer to the earliest video on causal bodies, which is there in the channel. Now, and the bad ones destroying certain cells. Now, this is again for the microbes. So there are certain microbes which is called which eat our cells, which eat a certain uh, portion of our bodies. When they cross the limits, then that's the time when we call them as infection, etc. But till then, it is also considered to be a part of destruction, which in the cyclical convention we call this as law of creative destruction. That means to help myself grow, to increase my immunity, sometimes the microbes eating away certain cells is also essential. So similarly, science has it that every body part grows and changes at atomic level. So what am I trying to say here is that in this process of every growth, okay, where one cell eats the other, the microbes working on their actions, the inorganic compounds, the organic compounds, both of them develop and then they create certain substances, and then they trigger with the work of the hormones, and finally the body starts growing. And because of that, what happens is it takes 7 years for the entire atomic pattern of a particular body part to grow or to become completely new. So it is not seen like, okay, overnight the whole process has taken place. It takes 7 years, meaning it's a very gradual process. Next slide. Yeah. Now, so what happens to the atom which is getting replaced over 7 years? That means a fresh set of atoms are coming in and the older atoms are fading away. Wow, that's beautiful. But when this happens, so what are we trying to say is for the fresh set of atoms, a certain memory is being carried with it, and it also gels with the memory of my intellect, and both of them together combine and work in creation of the physical body. So do the atoms which has left the body, they carry some imprint of myself and they leave the body. And when they settle to another person's body or another being's body, there is a carry over of my memory as well to them. Now, this is how we in Theosophy attribute it to one of our objectives, that we are interconnected. At least ethically or in terms of the atomic structures, even scientifically, we are interconnected. And thus, we always say that there is a law of oneness. Yeah. So, yeah, coming back, these memories, which is leaving my body and also going to another body, we call them as imprints. So the exiting atoms take away with them these imprints of memory to help in building other bodies in future. Now, when I mean by other bodies in future, not only about mine, it is also about someone next to it. Now, this is why the modern psychology always, or even be the cultures, all the cultures across the globe, have always been very clear that the ambience or the environment where one needs to grow needs to be clean, hygienic, they have to be healthy. Suppose that these atoms are poisoned with alcohol, that's the question which you need to ask. So, what happens now? There is an imprint of alcoholic consumption within my body. The atoms and the memories have taken them. And as they leave the bodies, these memories also go with it. And because of that, if there is another body being formed with these imprints of alcohol in it, and they will have certain effects chemically also, because that spirit gives you some reactions into my cells. So when it leaves the body and goes into another place, maybe or maybe not, one fine day that person will think like, hey, let's grab a drink. I mean, whether right or wrong, that's a different story, but this is what the science is all about. So that is how interconnected we are. And we all know the pandemic, how interconnected we are. A person who is infected, if you are in 10 feet within his limits, or within his vibes, or within his physical proximity, within 10 meters you are there, or 10 feet you are there, automatically you get infected. How? Because the microbes also leave the body along with this. Next slides. Right. So alcohol, what is it all about now? This is the science which we are talking here. Now, what is alcohol? Um, Ethically, if you read the literature, she is talking in conscience, but there is one author called Author A. Powell, A.E. Powell, we call him. He has written about the bodies, the astral body, the mental body, the etheric double, etc. And he tells to you that um, the bodies which we have as a quality of attraction, okay, the aura which we see or the vibes which we experience are nothing but the matters of attraction. They all have a quality to attract. Now, how does this quality come from? It comes from a certain set of magnetism which is being developed within our atomic structures. That means deep inside our bodies, deep inside our brains, deep in the minds, deep in the matter which carries the thought, deep in the matter which carries the emotions, there is a quality of magnetism with which it attracts things. Now, when it attracts these things, uh, what happens is the manifestation starts happening. That means that what thought I perceive is how I feel as my passion, and how I execute it through the energy systems, and how I physicalize it or manifest it through the physical action. Now, this is how that wiring is all made about. So, you need this magnetism as a principle, and through this law of magnetism, you have the law of attraction, and through the law of attraction, you have the action taking place or manifestation happening through. However, certain things, while with the bodies, with the food we eat, the air we breathe, all carries this level of magnetism within us. Okay, they also impact the vitality because of the magnetism as well. So it has been seen clairvoyantly that when there is a consumption of alcohol, the magnetism is not that great. I will not say it is completely lost, because that also happens over a period of time. Because as we saw, the atomic replacement takes 7 years for something to grow in full. So obviously, this magnetism should also be taking a considerable period of time. So so it's not an overnight affair. But the consumption of alcohol is also reducing the magnetism which we all have, or the vibe or the color which we all have. So what they have observed on those days was that those who are working in breweries, those who are working in distilleries, all have some constraints. And when they even look at their faces are always dull. It looks very drained. It looks very weary, etc. And that's how it has been. Even now, sometimes we see, right, the overnight when people come to us and we see the face is all dull and we ask them what's the reason, they say they had a hangover. And you see that their eyes are red the whole day, they are very, very, very sober, and they're not able to be very active like how you and I are. You ask them to get an item and jump off the bed, they cannot. They feel the body very heavy, difficult to move. In fact, few of them have told me that they feel very difficult to carry themselves along with the bodies. So that's how it has been, right? So why? Because of the influence of magnetism which has gone down, because of which the vitality and the energy levels goes down, and thereby you feel very heavy. So what are the alcoholic compounds? If you look at it, they are nothing but carbon and hydrogen, the hydrocarbon molecules and atoms basically. And if you look, the hydrocarbons are what you and I are made up of. All the organic compounds have carbon and hydrogen in it. They are perfectly harmless within themselves and perfectly respectable in the chemical family. But they become disreputable when added with a particular form, especially with a molecule of water. So that means that my alcoholic compounds, when I add them with something, okay, that is, say you add them with water, we get spirit, which is diluted before consumption. But be in whatever form or however diluted it is always essentially marked by the same characteristics which cannot be separated from it. So that means, don't ask me, Mathur, if that's okay, then I consume alcohol raw. Sorry, that's not what we are trying to say. What we are trying to say is, even for that consumption, you need to have a bit of spirit content in it. And when you go for a spirit content, again, the magnetism is lost. So, as a rule, persons who are concerned in making of these drinks are not the most thoughtful, refined, or cultured of human beings. And we also have something called as the food or the drink or even the water which one serves. His thoughts, his effects, and his energies also impact the food and the water we consume. So the one who serves, if that guy has a good vibes, then what you would consume would also have a good vibes, else if you wouldn't be having good vibes. Now, how do I know this? It all develops over a span of sensitivity with a certain degree of heightened sensitivity, not sensibility, sensitivity. You can very well figure out what's a good vibe and what's a bad vibe. That's why in many cultures we always have, no, if you feel very uncomfortable in a home, don't eat or drink or consume any food there. You better stay away. And in India, it's very peculiar. So if somebody, you offer someone water and if they say no to it, that means that there is some grossness. So people always take it in a very way. Don't ask me then what if I'm on diet and they offer me food. I'm just telling it as a general norm. So as a rule, they show the influence of that in which they're continually working and get a certain physical stamp upon them that enables you to recognize them as persons who are normally connected with this particular form of industry. Now, this is the observation which I said, that they look very dreary, they look very weary, and then they look very, very psychologically slow, even in thinking and in the processes. They are slow, and you can very easily make out that how they are in terms of a person. The next slide. Yeah. Now, so we can easily and a body can easily recognize the one who consumes alcohol or works in a brewery from the one who is not. This is very common. I do not know how many of you have felt this. Every time you enter a bar or a resto bar or in a dance or in a pub, you feel there is some sort of difference there. The vibes of the place are different. If you're very sensitive enough, you would have known. And theosophists are supposed to have an extra inch of sensitivity within themselves. At least from what we do and from the books we read, we get a level of sensitivity. With that, it's more than enough to find out that, okay, these vibes are different than compared to my places. Okay, a confession as well as a declaration. AB, That's a short form we use for Annie Besant. So she herself used to drink French wine during her early days, which has around 2 to 8% alcohol. And then later on, she started abstaining herself after she knew about the etheric forms, and she's become a complete teetotaler. And by at the time of giving this lecture, she herself makes a first declaration that she is a teetotaler, and that's why she's making this speech. So, and post abstaining, as she was traveling in a train, so this happened to her that she was traveling in a train, and that train had football players who were traveling along in the same compartment, and it seems that they all won a match and they had a nice blast of drinks because they were celebrating the victory. And when they came around her, she felt positively sick to be near them. And when they left, she felt a bit better. So this level of sensitivity comes to you. This level of you can make out that you're not feeling comfortable. I, I'm not saying that they have not to be attended. Sorry, that's not what we're trying to say. Should we discriminate them? No. What we're trying to tell you is that because of this phenomenon where you have an outpouring vitality going into the atmosphere in which you are given, that's the time when you start becoming if you don't have enough guards, you can become vulnerable, and AB is no more an exception. So even she was feeling physically sick for some time till she was in contact, or her energies were in contact with the same thing. Okay, so with occult work, there is sensitivity which is developed, and this makes us to gauge a different vibe of physical emanations coming from us. Uh, Now, one such way, how do I know that whether my sensitivity has gone up is you can actually get your own smell. That's one of what is that? One of these sparks they have given in the books. So if you read the books, no, they have said that how do one know that he's reached a height of sensitivity? Sometimes you tend to hear some very subtle noises which is not known. Then sometimes you tend to, like, you're working on a computer and suddenly you just get a vision about your mother or father or something which you have been closely associated with, and that's one heightened level of sensitivity. Another very important heightened level of sensitivity is smell. You can actually figure out something through smell. I do not know if you notice this. If you go into a very etherealized or very energetic, highly vitalized place, like a forest, a thick forest or jungles, um, you can actually figure out, not even by communicating, you can just figure out with smell that is there any animal around. The same thing also goes with the animal. The animal can also sense whether there's a human being with just smell. Only when we go out and when we come into the physical, less and less etherealized or less and less energized places where the vitality is dropping, that's when the talk makes the change. You need to talk and talk and talk and talk till they become clear about what we are trying to convey. Till then, no talks, nothing necessary, just a smell, just a sense of vibes, and that's more than enough to figure out who we are. Clear? So as the atoms go out from the imprint of drinking, they get captured into those who are growing as well. Ha! Now this is something which we need to think of. Okay, the imprints are moving out, right? Now, what if the imprint gets into a making up of bodies of a child? What imprint it can give to making up of bodies which are sick? What imprint can this do if it is going into the bodies of those who are addicts already? It can worsen their conditions. I mean, again, not overnight, gradually worsen their conditions, isn't it? And that can help they also again spreading it to someone else. So this kind of atomic flows keep happening. So we need to be clear. That is why certain dwelling spaces were very clear with the norms that any drunkards were not allowed inside. I do not know. Even now, few villages have these restrictions. If you're drunk or you've consumed alcohol, you're sick, you're not treated inside the village. Rather, you're kept in isolation on the borders of the village till your conditions normalize. Then they allow you in. Why? because of this factor. There, the memory of drinking can be nurtured. We say can be and not will be. If you're vulnerable, you can pick it up and you can work on it. And therefore, the habit of drinking can socialize. So that is how over decades, you see that now the alcoholism has become a social drinking. You ask anybody, they just say they are a social drinker. So that means you can understand how the science behind it works. So the entire talk is only about this, that I get some globules or vitality globules and I give vitality globules outside, and this vitality globules can impact the energies and the forms of everyone around. So based on that is what she has been elaborating. So the crux of it is this, that what you receive is what you give, and what you give is what you receive always. Next slide, please. So coming up to the social issue, now we are touching this. So surely also this will show the enormous importance of abstention to the parents of families. So it's better you abstain from drinking. Just imagine the life of the child. So far as the physical body is concerned, is very largely influenced by the life given physically by the parents. At least we know that till the age of 7, what the parents do and how the parents behave and the energies and the health of the parents decides the health of the child up to the age of 7. So how can a child be born with a body physically healthy if that body be built up of atoms that are physically poisoned? Even when you are in the womb, that's why, you remember the food, they abstain from drinking. When pregnant women are abstained from drinking because of this reason. Now, if a man who's engaged to a girl practically forces her, either by a shaft, a jeering, or in any other way, into occasionally taking a glass, he has no right to blame the wife when she keeps up the habit. I have never yet found the man who liked his wife to drink, and yet they all want the sweetheart to drink. This is what she makes a statement in that place. I do not know if this condition still exists after a century, but still what she says is what is still happening, is what I would like to say. So we as humanity need to think, where are we going, or we are still the same across centuries, or we are trying to make marginal change towards our behavior. Next slide. Right. Now what's the concern from the theosophical side? Like what I said, man is regarded as not the body, but the one who uses the body. The soul, the soul having thoughts, the thoughts having emotions, the emotions having vitalities, the vitalities having the body to work upon. So we are the one who uses the body. Suppose because of this alcohol, the nerves and all of them become very dumb and docile. Then what happens? It becomes very difficult for us to materialize what we are thinking, or to put into action what we are thinking. The mind body coordination is hampered, isn't it? So that's what we're trying to say. Let's avoid that situation. So every life practically he makes the house is going to inhabit the next. So what are we doing in theosophy is what we're trying to say is that the bodies which you build right now is how you will be going it after death. So even after the death, the same composition goes. Your energies, your vitalities, the physical body will be dead, that's for sure. But beyond the bodies, the emotions, the thoughts, and also the certain level of ensoulment, okay, of a different dimensions, they all stay alive. I still remember one of the places where one of the healers said that when you die, you carry the chakras with you. But that's like a very very shorter way of saying it. But what we are trying to say is that you are creating a destiny for yourself. All right. So looking at it in that way, it's better to drop what is gross. It is better to drop and not create harm for the bodies, because who knows, in future you may have to take up a body just because you have a memory of alcoholism in it. So why not just clear it out right now and build up these bodies? Because here in Theosophy we talk about reincarnation. And in reincarnation, you require the body which you would need in order to carry on a work to benefit so many people. And for that, you require a sharp mind, a compassionate heart, and a very, very vibrant body to do what you want to do. So that during one life, he builds up his next habitation, and by the intellect and spiritual activity of one human existence, he modifies the physical conditions of his next experience in human life. This is called as the doctrine of reincarnation. The theosophist has come to the absolute knowledge of the fact, as you think, you are continually creating forms of ethereal matter. May we have someone who's not muted to mute themselves, please? As you think, you're continually creating forms of ethereal matter, not visible to ordinary eyesight, but visible under certain peculiar conditions, even of the nervous system. This is what we are talking about. Have you realized that sometimes everything around you is so silent and so calm, but somewhere there is always a grudge inside? The nerves are somewhere, grudging for some reason. And if you observe it very closely, the vibes of the place also matter. The thought patterns of people thinking around that space also matters. They may all be physically silent. They may all be smiling on their faces. They may all be helping. But for some reason, there is a grudge because what they think deep inside, that matter is flowing in the aura and that has been picked up by us. So that's why these things which are not physically visible, but yeah, you can train your eyesight to have these sights, and with that sights, we can gauge the situation. Next slide. So, what are we trying to build? We are trying to build a virtuous body for the next incarnations or next set of habitations. Now, this comes from three things. Number one, physical heredity. That's where this is important. What Andy Mason speaks about is important, that you create an ambience for growth. Number two, gift of overruling providence. This is done by act of grace. So that means that to a certain degree of inbuilt devotion, a change happens. A vibration gets up to a certain higher level. But can this vibration be prolonged over a period of time? You need to be that is challenging because a physical body, if it is drained or if it is not vibrating to that frequency, then you may fall off. So that's why, sometimes when initiations are given, they just fly high, 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 higher, and then suddenly after some time they just fall down. Why? Because lack of purification. Okay, there is certain level of grossness, certain level of frequencies which is not able to retain the frequency of vibration which it had for such period. It tends to fall. And the third one is past thoughts and actions. Okay, now this past thoughts and actions overrules the grace, and that is the reason why somebody is falling. Okay, now that is our theosophical view of life. Evolution, evolution, evolution. Evolution here means continually progressing. A body is molded by this inner life and made a better and better expression of all its capabilities in life after life. The body reacting under this influence and changing for higher and higher possibilities until millennium after millennium, the human race is built better and better for a dwelling beyond that for which it now occupies. And so you trace upwards as you trace individuals, and you have in this system of evolution the reason for the progress of man. When you look at it from this level, then you need to know not only the alcoholism, every vice which we practice needs to be changed. And this is a continuous process. There is nothing called as okay, I'm completely out of it. No, there is a continuous progress even after a certain level of de-addiction or rehabilitation or whatever mechanisms we call. Even after that, there is always a scope of improvement even within ourselves. In that space, jealousy, hatred, anger comes and takes that space. Again, from there we need to work on ourselves and go more compassionate, more loving, and more healing, and more effective in helping people and serving people. There again, there is another set of jealousy which comes over, a dominion which comes over. That also we need to work on and proceed further. So this is not a destiny. it's a journey. So let's make that very clear, and that's what we're trying to say. So these are the words of her speech, which I have put it down. But what is the essence where it's trying to convey is that as we evolve further and further, it becomes very important that our past thoughts and actions shouldn't be doing it. This actually shows echoing the law of karma in a very different way. Basically, what are we trying to say is that your life is your making. Clear? So better take care that the past, present, and the future are adequately going in the right progress. And how do you know if it's right or wrong? It is how you consider it as right and wrong and proceed through it. All right. The next slide, please. Whether you take, okay, I'm just repeating the same thing, but the next paragraph, whether you take my first line of argument, the body built of these atoms that we impregnate or stamp, or whether you regard it as a dwelling place of this true man, the inner self, you will see why the theosophist is likely to be a teetotaler and why he throws all his influence against the cursing of man by drink. All right. So the next time, so the next time if somebody says, come join me for a drink, just tell them that you have other techniques to go higher. Okay, just jokes apart. Next slide, please. Right. So that with the conclusion, what is she trying to say? I'm just reading her extract. That then, friends, is why I'm glad to come this morning and perhaps add some new weapons to the arsenal you are accustomed to use against this enemy of man. She's talking about alcoholism. I do not ask any one of you to accept the peculiar side of my views without thought and investigation. She's asking you to use your intelligent evaluation. I am not putting it to you as a propagandist might desire to convince you of the truth of his views. I have only tried to lay before you a definite reason why this position against the use of alcohol altogether should be taken up by those to whom I myself personally belong. And without accepting my theories as a whole, I think you may find some of the arguments useful. At any rate, in putting them before you, you will judge them for yourself, for you, I am sure, like myself, will not form your opinions merely upon an hour's lecture, but upon long and careful investigation. I have put before you views I honestly hold, and ask none to accept them until their reason judges them to be right. I ask none to take them until their own intelligence endorses them. I speak to you as one human being to another, believing that these views are useful. I leave them to your judgment, but do not desire to dominate anyone. I do not wish to force them upon any, but simply to express my views of man's nature, and in doing so, to give you fresh reasons to justify the propaganda you're carrying on in this matter. If we do not agree on all points, we are united on one. This is a spiritual thing which she's talking about. We are agreed on this that in the present hour we are all practical creators, and to be a drunken creator is so ghastly a possibility that when once realized, I'm sure it never will be faced. So I leave this to your judgment. Though this is the background which we have spoken about, you with your intelligent evaluation may consider it, accept it, deny it, or consider what is right and wrong and act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Mathurnath. And yes, if anyone thought that this presentation is about the influence of alcohol, I think they may not be right, because it goes much deeper than that. It is the effect of the invisible on the visible in any field. I mean, we are continuously populating the world around, as you said, as you mentioned so nicely, that the atoms are going out of us and we impregnate them if by our way of thinking, what we are eating, what we are drinking, and all those effects combinedly make the imprint on those atoms, and then they go to surroundings. And then we say that violence is increasing in this world, stress is increasing in this world, or I mean, we don't think how our little small actions or thoughts are contributing in the global phenomena. So thank you so much for explaining so nicely, as you always do. And now we open this session for open discussion, because I think this is a very important subject, as not just the subject of alcohol, but the subject of the uh, invisible things affecting our life and how we are the maker of our destiny. The body we have got, the way of thinking pattern that we have got, there is nobody to blame, no God to blame, or nobody else to blame. We are what we have made ourselves today. But the positive thing is we can make ourselves what we want to be in the future, starting right now. So I invite anyone, I am now allowing participants to unmute themselves. And if anyone has some thoughts on this subject or something related to it, please, you are all welcome to switch on your video first, unmute yourself, and then you can raise your hand by either on the camera or electronically by the reactions, and we'll invite you to say, share your views. Even if you have any questions regarding that, that can be, can be tried to address by the speaker or others. So anyone would like to say something? Oh, I have one question though. It is, you accepted and it's very innocent, but that alcohol is also used in keeping the homeopathic medicines.
Yes.
Everybody takes them, and I think but to what extent do you think that may affect, or that may have some influence?
Well, not a homeopathist, so I
Yeah.
would restrain myself from talking about the homeopathic or the science behind it.
Yeah.
But what is being spoken about in terms of the spirit and then the influence of it on on the body, and see, as the matter says that if these imprints of uh, alcohol, or is it the matter which matters, or the thought or the memory which it carries matters? The precedence, from what I understand from the lectures, is that the thoughts or the memories which it carries matter most than the physical imprints. So that means that the body which you're consuming, even the medicines which you consume, are consumed with an intention to get healed. So that means it increases the receptivity of me taking the thought form of healing. So when the body leaves, yes, there is certain sense of the molecular combinations of alcohol or spirit rather. Alcohol is not the right word, the spirit rather. But the thought or the intention of healing is also memory which the atoms take with themselves. So when they go with the other bodies, might be that they result in the way of increasing receptivity, or also having certain elementals of healing within themselves. That means that the body gets the intelligence to recuperate by itself, to heal by itself, because of the drugs which it had taken from the body which disseminated these items. That's possible.
Yeah, possible. Yeah. Thank you on that. And anybody else? I see Professor Shinde has unmuted himself. Professor Shinde ji, yes.
Yes, I congratulate Mathurnathan. Very, very nicely he has put before us the thoughts of Annie Besant on alcohol. And she very humbly said, these are my thoughts. You may use it for your development. It's good, the question what Shikharji has asked. It is also a question which is need to be pondered over, because alcohol by its very nature destroy the neural connections in our brain. So alcohol definitely destroys the neural connection in our brain. But it is not only the alcohol. As we study the subtler levels our thoughts, our emotions, so many things are destroying our neural connection. And when several studies by medical fraternities say that alcohol consumption is even good for health if taken regularly in a limited quality. So alcohol is at physical level. So that is at chemical level that destroys the neural connection. But we can regain those neural connection by our thoughts and emotions. So if it is alcohol consumption is even good for health if taken regularly in a limited quality. That is what Ayurveda says, and that is what it is practiced. But Mathurnathan, I ask you to reflect on several people who consume alcohol are not only good people, but are intelligent as well. How would this fit into overall personality and character of a person? That needs to be pondered over, I think.
So this is about, if I have to take it in the modern terminologies, do we go judgmental with the people who we drink? We have intelligent people who consume alcohol, but do we call them as a character assassination? No, you need not drag them to that extent. That is because we have gone to that extent of entertaining ourselves and magnifying things too much that we call them as characteristically immoral person. No, that's not what it is. Rather, the way which I have to say is, do not be judgmental about the person's habits or things. We do have HPB smoking cigars to ground herself when she was into a very high psychic medium. So, but equally, it has also ruptured her physical body. Never to blame that. It has also caused some physical damages to ourselves. So, taking that figure, what I'm trying to say is, let us not judge, or let us not make any conclusions of any person's lives or habits whatsoever. More than that, what matters to us is, okay, this is the science I have, this is what it means to us. And more than the physical, the subtlety also matters to us. So be careful that these subtleties are also given to you in the right frame. That's what I'm trying to give.
Also, yeah, I think Mathurnath said. Also, I think, as you said, sir, that people who are intelligent and good, and they also consume. Also, I think one is the, we can say, the peer pressure, or to adjust with the society that the person is in, and to because if everybody is, and as you said, it has now become socially acceptable. And not just socially acceptable, maybe in some cases, actually it is kind of a prestige thing, or if somebody, or like a fashion, that if in a group, if you don't drink, or if you don't smoke, or if you don't eat meat, then you are like an outcast. And then, you don't get time to talk over with your boss, or the other person gets promotion because he's or she's with they bond together over a drink or smoke or something. So that forces the person, okay, if by doing this I can get that, no worries. But yeah, and even in Mahatma letters, I think Mahatma have mentioned about epicynate, because they were also used to taking spirits or something. So he has mentioned that due to its effect, the magnetism is not so receptive towards Mahatma's vibrations, and he had to work extra to convey his message to Mr. Sinnett. So this kind of everything that we eat or drink creates a magnetism around us, and then either it is helpful or it is obstructive to the positive higher vibrations. So, but yes, everybody has to think for themselves, and we have to ponder over it, as Professor Shinde said. Taralji.
Or maybe just tell them next time that, okay, if you're intelligent, maybe just say that you have other ways to go high.
Hi. Yeah, totally. Unmute, Taralji.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
एक पिक्चर का एक गाना है, नशा शराब में होता है तो नाच की बोतल, नशे में कौन नहीं है ये तो बताओ जरा. मतलब मेरा ये कहना है कि in one of the slides, Mathurnath has mentioned that AB was having a French wine which had 2 to 8% of alcohol. So, influence of alcohol or any bad habit. Just now, Shikharji mentioned cigarettes also. So, and consumption of anything which is there for some other purpose and is done for some other purpose will always be dangerous, because alcohol is there in, just like you mentioned, in medicines also, in several things also it is used. So influence of alcohol, if a term like this, the sentence may be completed by that in limitation or in control of certain things. May not be that bad. It may give an benefit also. लेकिन जब वो अधिक हो जाता है, किसी की मात्रा बढ़ जाती है, if anything is out of proportion, even that goes for I think meditation also, or any, कई लोग बोलते हैं कि ये कट्टर धर्मिष्ठ है, तो वो कट्टरवादी जो चीज है, तो मैं कहूंगा कि कट्टरवादी जो शराबी है वो शायद बहुत गड़बड़ है. ये कट्टरवादी शब्द हर नशे के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है. गुटखा खाते हैं, तंबाकू का सेवन करते हैं. लेकिन मेरा एक प्रश्न है माथुरनाथ को, मैं बहुत रिस्पेक्ट करता हूँ इसको, इनके पास अध्ययन इन्होंने बहुत किया है, कि हमारे संस्कृति में भी ऐसा आता है कि होली के दिन लोग भांग लेते हैं, और दैट इज ऑल्सो अ ट्रेडिशनल नशा. या गांव में मट्ठा मिलता है और जो नेचुरल प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं उसकी एक कुछ वो नशा बनाते हैं. तो ये जो ट्रेडिशनली एक चला आ रहा है पुराने जमाने से, मतलब प्राचीन काल से, मैं कहूँगा, इस बारे में अगर if he has some knowledge, maybe he can throw something on it.
Okay, so how this was looked at is on two things. One thing is the receptivity of the individual, his physical constitution. Now, suppose if their polarization is more on the physical and the etheric aspects, then in that case, a certain narcotic was also essential for them, both in terms of healing and also in terms of making them receptive to the higher vibrations. Because in shamans and all, if you just see that, you know, a certain set of drug is given to make them go lucid and then to relax the whole system and make them numb, so that the higher vibrations and then the mediumistic works have also been worked with them. So because now, why did they do this is because their bodies were more on polarized with the etheric and the physicalities of it. But right now, in the scheme of evolution, none of us have that compulsion. We have gone to certain extent higher. So for us, now it's only the thought and the intention. Even the Veda, the Ayurveda, which speaks about it, at the end of the day, it says that Yatha Chitta Manovrittihi Tatha Yogam Uccha Kalpate. That means that the way I think, the way I behave, and the way I think that I'm getting well, the projection of my thought over myself, is how my progress and my healing and my wellness is being installed or instated rather. So looking at that level, if you're using the bhang for getting intoxicated, is a different story. I'm not getting into that. But whether for medicinally, when they have used it, it was used for those people who were much more having their minds rooted with the bodies. But once they knew that they are not with the body, for example, nobody used anesthesia for Ramana Maharshi, we know, because his mind was not always with the body, it was completely out of the bodies. So in that case, there was no intoxication, or there was no thing which was necessary to give him an anesthetic and then perform a surgery on him. So it just depends upon the polarization which we have. The culture which we have right now had that polarization, but the same people on the same day when the polarization is not to that level and it has gone beyond the physicalities, for them bhang was in fact a detrimental effect, and they were not given that. They were taught meditations and other psychic and other mystic practices.
Thank you, Mathurnath. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Taralji. Thank you. Okay, so we have come.
Thank you, Mathurnath. Very nicely
you, sir.
explained. And we have to think over it deeply because we are polluting the whole atmosphere by our own habits. And you have explained it to the vital global levels, how they mix, and even a smoker can pollute in his home. Drinker can pollute in his home. The whole family gets affected by this, and not only for this life, but in the next life also. That is what Annie Besant has warned us. So very nice discussion. Thank you very much for your talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shikharji.
Thank you,
Also
Shindeji.
Taralji, he spoke about the social. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
So
much.
being the last session for the year, I wish you all a very happy new year, and let's be responsible equally to create the right orbs and the right vibes across us to an extent possible.
बस मैं वही कहना चाहता था कि ये अंतिम मीटिंग नहीं है, एक नए युग की शुरुआत है 2 साल और बहुत बहुत सभी को बधाइयां अग्रिम रूप से नए साल की.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to extend gratitude to our speaker today, Mathurnath, on behalf of Indian section, Young Indian Theosophist, for sharing with us in such a clear manner and lucid manner with a very important subject. And now, as I said, this is the last session of the year 2022. And next time we will meet in the year 2023. The next programs we'll share with you once it is finalized, and the dates and times and subjects. And our young team, Mathurnath and Smitapragyan, are working hard to bring to you more interesting ways and more interesting subjects and speakers that you would definitely like to listen to and do your contribution. And now, to close this session, let us all come together in a heart and mind and pray, send our thoughts for the welfare of the whole manifestation. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhave. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. See you next time. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and have a great week ahead. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mathur.